7 miles beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, there is a place so deep, so dark, and so hostile that more people have walked on the surface of the moon than have ever traveled to the bottom of it. It is called the Challenger Deep, and it is the lowest point on the entire planet. If you could pick up Mount Everest and drop it into this trench, the summit, the highest place on Earth, would still be more than a mile underwater. The pressure down there is over 1,000 times what you feel right now, enough to crush a steel submarine like an empty drink can. And yet, it is not empty. Things live down there, things we are only beginning to understand. Today, we are going to descend, slowly, all the way to the bottom of the world, and find out what is really waiting in the Mariana Trench. Take a breath. We're going down. We begin at the surface, in the warm blue water of the Western Pacific, east of the Philippines. For the first 200 meters, there is light. This is the world you know: fish, sunlight, coral, the occasional shark. But as we sink past 200 meters, the color begins to drain away. Red disappears first, then orange, then yellow, until everything is a deep, cold blue. By the time we reach 1,000 meters, that last blue light is gone completely. We have entered what scientists call the midnight zone, and from here all the way to the bottom, almost 10 more kilometers down, there will never be another ray of sunlight again. Whatever happens from this point on happens in total darkness. At 3,000 meters, the water is just a few degrees above freezing, and the weight of the ocean above us is already immense. But we are not even halfway. The Mariana Trench plunges down to nearly 11,000 meters, almost 11 kilometers of water stacked on top of itself. To understand what that means, think about pressure. At the surface, the air pushes on you at 1 atmosphere. At the bottom of the Challenger Deep, the water pushes with the force of more than 1,000 atmospheres. That is the weight of roughly 50 jumbo jets pressing down on every single square meter. A human being, unprotected, would not be crushed slowly. It would happen instantly. This is why, for almost all of human history, the bottom of the trench was completely beyond our reach. For a long time, we knew more about the surface of other planets than we did about this place in our own ocean. The trench was first measured in 1875 by a British ship called the Challenger, which is where the Challenger Deep gets its name. But measuring it and going there are two very different things. It would take another 85 years before any human being actually reached the bottom. In 1960, 2 men, Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh, climbed into a tiny steel sphere called the Trieste and began a descent that took them almost 5 hours. When they finally touched the bottom, they became the first people in history to stand, in a manner of speaking, at the deepest point on Earth. They stayed for only about 20 minutes. The pressure was too dangerous, and a window had already cracked on the way down. And then, for 52 years, nobody went back. It was simply too difficult, too expensive, and too deadly. It was not until 2012 that a single human being returned to the Challenger Deep, alone, in a vertical submarine he had helped design. That person was the film director James Cameron. He described the bottom as a desolate, alien, moon-like place, a vast, empty plain of pale sediment stretching out into the dark in every direction. Think about that for a moment. We have sent rovers to crawl across Mars. We have landed probes on a comet. And yet you can count on one hand the number of humans who have ever seen the deepest part of our own planet with their own eyes. So what is actually down there, on that silent plain at the bottom of the world? The first thing we found is something nobody wanted to see. When explorers finally reached the deepest points of the trench with cameras and sampling equipment, they expected pristine, untouched wilderness. Instead, on one of the deepest dives ever recorded, an explorer looked out of the window at the very bottom of the Challenger Deep and saw a plastic bag. 7 miles down, in the most remote location on the entire planet, in a place almost no living human has ever visited, our garbage had already arrived. Studies have since found tiny plastic fibers inside the bodies of creatures living at the very bottom of the trench. There is, quite literally, nowhere left on Earth that we have not touched. But the trench is not just an empty graveyard for our waste. Against every expectation, life has found a way to survive down here, under crushing pressure, in freezing darkness, with almost nothing to eat. And the creatures that have adapted to it are some of the strangest on the planet. Meet the Mariana snailfish. It looks almost delicate, pale, translucent, a little like a tadpole, and it holds an extraordinary record. It is the deepest living fish ever discovered, found swimming more than 8,000 meters down. At that depth, the pressure should tear an ordinary fish apart. The snailfish survives because its body is soft and gelatinous, with no swim bladder to collapse, and its bones are partly unfinished, kept flexible on purpose. It is not fighting the pressure. It has simply stopped resisting it. Deeper still, the snailfish gives way to the true rulers of the trench, the amphipods. On the surface, amphipods are tiny, little shrimp-like creatures a few millimeters long that you might find in a rock pool. But in the Mariana Trench, something strange has happened. Down here, they grow into giants, some of them more than 30 centimeters long, the length of your forearm. They swarm over anything that falls to the bottom, a dead fish, a whale carcass, sometimes the bait left by scientists. Within minutes, hundreds of them appear out of the darkness and strip it clean. They are the trench's cleanup crew, and they are everywhere. Proof that even in the most hostile place on Earth, life does not just cling on, it thrives. And then there are the things that barely look like life at all. Scattered across the floor of the trench are strange, fragile structures called xenophyrophores. For years, scientists weren't even sure what they were. They look like clumps of mud or crumpled paper, some as wide as 10 centimeters across, and yet each one is a single living cell. A single-celled organism, the size of your hand, sitting at the bottom of the deepest place on Earth. They are among the largest individual cells known to science, and they may be some of the oldest, slowest living things in the entire ocean. We still understand almost nothing about how they live, how long they survive, or what role they play down there in the dark. The trench keeps its secrets in other ways too. In 2014, hydrophones lowered into the Mariana region recorded a bizarre metallic 5-part sound that no one could explain, rising from a deep moan into an almost electronic ring. It became known as the Western Pacific biotwang. For years it was a genuine mystery. The leading theory now is that it comes from a species of whale, but even that is not certain, and the deep ocean is full of sounds like it, noises picked up by our instruments that we still cannot confidently match to anything we know. When you remember that we have explored only a tiny fraction of the trench, the obvious question becomes deeply unsettling. If something large was moving down there, in the dark, most of the time we simply would not know, because that is the truth that is hardest to sit with. Despite everything, the dives, the cameras, the samples, we have physically explored only a sliver of the Mariana Trench. The vast majority of it has never been seen by human eyes or human machines. We have better, more complete maps of the surface of the Moon, of Mars, and of Venus than we do of the bottom of our own ocean. The deepest place on Earth is essentially a blank space on the map, right here on our own planet, hidden under 7 miles of black water. Whatever the strangest thing in the Mariana Trench really is, there is a very real chance that no human being has ever seen it, and that it is down there right now, in the cold and the dark, completely unaware that a world of light exists somewhere far above it. We came down here looking for the bottom of the world, and we found it. A crushing, freezing, lightless plain where giants the size of your arm swarm in the dark, where a single cell can grow as wide as your hand, and where, somehow, our own plastic got there before we did. The Mariana Trench is the closest thing to another planet that exists on Earth, and it is ours, and we have barely begun to understand it. If you want to keep descending with us into the strangest and least explored places on the planet, subscribe to the channel. The ocean has a lot more left to show us, and we'll see you on the next dive.